Okay, so we're going to learn the Maimer Atem Nitzovim Hayom, which the Rebbe said in Tavshin Memches and Tismach. This is the last Maimer that we have from the Rebbe for this time of year. So it obviously holds special relevance until Mashiach comes from the Rebbe about this time of the year. And the Maimer teaches us what's the Aveda, what kind of Aveda can we do on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, everybody knows what's the meaning of Rosh Hashanah. What's the idea? What's the basic idea of Rosh Hashanah? Is Shetam Lichuni Aleichem, to crown the Eibishter King over the entire world. The question is, what kind of Aveda do I, as a Yid, have to do in order to crown the Eibishter over the entire world? Okay? Tell him to come with a copy. I'm saying he needs a copy. I only made 5 copies. Okay. So, what kind of Aveda do I need to do as a Yid in order to crown the Eibishter as king? And in order to explain that, the Rebbe will first explain how is it that we can crown the Eibishter as king over the entire world. So, with that introduction, let's get started with the Maimer. I will say this Maimer has in it a lot of deep concepts that require a lot of preparation and a lot of time, neither of which were done for this year. So, we will just learn those concepts superficially. So it says in the pasuk, Atem Nitzovim Hayom Kulchem, that the Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Yidden that all of you are standing today in front of the Eibishter. And this parsha, we always lay in this parsha before Rosh Hashanah, on the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, we lay in this parsha because this parsha has a special connection to Rosh Hashanah. We always read this parsha on the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, Merumas, the Milas Hayom de Kayal Rosh Hashanah, and its connection to Rosh Hashanah is hinted at with the word of Atem Nitzovim Hayom, with the word Hayom, because this is the same word as Zeh Hayom Tchilas Masecha. In another pasuk, the word Hayom is a reference to Rosh Hashanah, and so too will be here in our pasuk Atem Nitzovim Hayom. Hayom is a reference to Rosh Hashanah. And what's the connection? The Alter Rebbe explains, Dezehu Inin Atem Nitzovim Hayom. On the day of Rosh Hashanah, all of the Yiddish neshamas stand upright, from the highest levels of Roshechem, Shivtechem, until the lowest levels of neshamas, from the wood choppers and the water carriers, and how do all of the 10 levels of the neshamas that the pasuk enumerates, from the highest to the lowest, how they all stand on this day of Rosh Hashanah, kulchem, all of you together, the tachlis ha'is achlus, the ultimate unity, kulam la'achadim ka'echad, all of us united as one. Mikivon, where does this unity come to the Yidden on the day of Rosh Hashanah? So it says, Mikivon shemis alim l'mayla b'sharshim u'mekayim achielyin, since on the day of Rosh Hashanah, the Yidden are elevated to their highest level and to their original source, Shasham Kulam Hem Chad Mamash, which in their highest level and in the original first initial source of the Yidden, over there all of the Yidden are one thing. It's only down here in this world when the neshama goes down to lower levels. Then you already have separate neshamas, and then never mind when the neshamas come down into this world into a body. Then you have separate Yidden and separate bodies, which the division of bodies from one another is much greater than the division of neshamas from one another. However, on the day of Rosh Hashanah, all of the Yidden are elevated to their original source, which over there in the original source they're all one. There's no distinction and there's no differentiation and separation between one neshama and another neshama, between one Yid and another Yid. Okay, so Atem Nitzovim Hayom Kulchem. How come is it that on the day of Rosh Hashanah all of the Yidden are standing as one? Because on the day of Rosh Hashanah, we rise up to our initial level, to our highest source, and over there, all of the Yidden are one mamash. To understand at greater depth the full degree of this oneness that we stand in, which is a result of Atem Nitzovim, of our condition on Rosh Hashanah. The pasuk continues, Atem Nitzovim before the Eibishter, you're Eibishter. The Rebbe explains when the pasuk over here says that we stand lifnei Havaya, it doesn't only mean like the standard Taich and Chassidus, that lifnei means that we're dealing on this day with the pnimius of Shem Havaya, The Nitzovim kulchem hu b'pnimius davai lekechem al derech hamuvor b'mokem acher b'mashkasu ve'ela mishpatim shetasim lifnem l'pnimiusam, that the mishpatim, the mitzvahs of the Torah, have to touch on the pnimius of Yid, not just on his chitzonius. So we're talking, however, over here about a madrega beyond standing before the pnimius of Shem Havaya and Elikim. Rather, what are we saying over here? More than that, Lifnei over here is not from the lashon of lifnei, before, rather before is in front of, rather lifnei literally in the sense of before, that we are earlier than and higher than, and we precede the level of Havaya Lekechem. So on the day of Rosh Hashanah, the Yidden are standing in a level where they precede even the level of Havaya Lekechem. It's understood from what the Alter Rebbe writes in his Haggah, or perhaps it's the Shem Tzedek's Haggah, whichever way it may be. And I'm not going to, without looking at the sources, there's nothing to understand in the Haggah, so we'll rely on the Rebbe to explain it to us. The Issa B'Rabbis, it says in Medish, Malachim Nemar Srafim Emdim Imaloi B'Negeh, to the Malachim, it says that they stand above him, in other words, above Havaya. Ubedishamis Nemar Atem Nitzovim Hayoim. That's the way to understand Atem Nitzovim Lifnei Havaya, that it's a reference to the same way that the Malachim stand higher than Havaya. Move on. Just like the Srafim, the Malachim stand higher than the level of Shem Havaya, which is going along with the pasuk. Mimalo, in the pasuk is a reference to the dmus of the Adam, which is sitting on the kisei elyon. So too we can understand the meaning in the pasuk Atem Nitzovim Hayoim, that we're standing lifnei Havaya, the lifnei hainu l'maylo mishem Havaya. So this is the first you say that the Rebbe puts in the Maimer. Remember, we started saying that on the day of Rosh Hashanah, the Yidden stand at a very high level, and that's why they could be kulchem, because at this very high level, they're all one. So we're starting to explain now what's this very high level that Yidden go up to on the day of Rosh Hashanah. So he says the first yesod, the first foundation that you have to have is that Lifnei Havaya, we stand higher than Havaya, higher than the level of Havaya Lekechem. Now, what does it mean to stand higher than the level of Havaya Lekechem? So he continues in one ice and another ice and then a third ice, describing one level after another level, how we stand higher than the level of Havaya Lekechem, what that means. In the continuation of the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, we find what's the Aveda of Rosh Hashanah? What are we supposed to achieve? What are we supposed to do on Rosh Hashanah? The main Aveda is to crown the Eibishter as king, as everybody knows. The Mizem Gufa Sheyesh B'Koichem Shal Yisrael Lahachtes HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Melech Olam Lichid. Alter Rebbe points out in the Maimer that the Yidden have the power, the ability to crown the Eibishter and to make him king. Move on. If they can bring about the making the Eibishter king, it's obvious that they stand up above that. If they're beneath this level of making the Eibishter king, how could they accomplish it? You can't do something that's beyond you. So obviously the Yidden stand higher than the level of making the Eibishter king.
But you have when people are Machter Melech, not after they're standing higher than the Melech. The Melech is Meshich Mekalam. Saying he's higher than them. Yeah. So to say that we're higher than the Eibishter,
no. Higher than Shem Havaya. Let's see what higher than Shem Havaya means. Higher than Shem Havaya. But when they get to the question, I had that same question occurred to me when I learned this Maimer the first time, and I don't have a beer. I didn't see a beer, but like Rabbi says, there is sort of beautiful word that the Rebbe explains the most profound concepts in Chassidus with simple hechachis, with simple proofs. So forget about the question of the longest, right? But as a simple proof, and this is so beautiful, how the Rebbe Pashat makes the deepest ideas accessible to us in a way that you have to agree. This logic that the Rebbe said, that if we're making the Eibishter king, then obviously we have the power. In other words, we are greater than this level of Eibishter being king, because if not, how could you make him king? You can't make something that you don't have the ability to do. An artist who draws a painting, he's obviously greater than the art form.
He is the king. We're declaring he's the king. We're confirming it, so to speak. Because we're not
Is in the issues of the Rebbe weiter, what's the whole story of Rosh Hashanah? If we're doing nothing, if nothing is happening over here, then why is it? Let's go play baseball. Why do we have to be in shul all day?
I mean, how are we doing a membership? Baseball membership.
Shul is not going to make membership. It's what is the pasuk mean? Tamlichuni aleichem. Yeah, it's a game. It's a game. It's not a game. Imru lefanei malchus kadesh tamlichuni aleichem. What the Eibushter is asking us.
So if that's the case, it's our job to declare it.
Correct.
Because the Eibush doesn't need you. But the Ein of Ein Melech B'Lo in order for that to happen, the Am has to declare it.
Yeah, but the need of Ein Melech B'Lo is not like a side point. It's saying that
it's a side stick. What I'm saying is that on that level of Ein Melech B'Lo, he's a Melech. Even if we didn't say boo, he's a Melech. Period. Now the fact that we're saying it, and the fact that we're saying it shows that there's that the whole idea of gracious and everything, it has to do with the fact that Kodesh Baruch was Melech on Tachtonim.
Okay.
So therefore, by you saying it, you're making it obvious to the world.
I'm not following the point.
The whole question is why do we have to go ahead and declare a king a king? He's a king already.
No,
what Moshe said?
No. That's not what he was pointing out. That's not what he was asking if this concept that the Am is that in order to make a king, you have to stand higher than the king. If that also applies to the literal situation where there's a nation crowning a king, that the nation stands above the king. And my answer to that is that I don't know. I don't know if it applies there. Okay. So he says weiter like this. Although even before the Yidden crowned the Eibishter as king, there already is a will, a ratzon by the Eibishter himself to be king. So l'chura, the fact that the Eibishter becomes king, you might argue, comes from that place, not that the Yidden accomplish it and create it, but rather that the Eibishter himself has this in him. And if the Eibishter himself has this in him, then you don't have to say that we stand higher than that. So he says no. This ratzon that's by the Eibishter to be king is what's called a ratzon hamuchlat ba'atzmusay. It's a very internal, if you will, to use for lack of a better word, a very personal ratzon that's in the atzmus of the Eibishter and is not revealed at all, doesn't express itself in any way, shape, or form.
This question came up when Rabbi says he asked me. It says in Adonai Lom, Asher Molach. What do you mean, a Melech B'Lo Yam? How can it say Asher Molach? So he says, I asked him, I don't even know. So he says there's a Panemius of Melech and a Chitzonius of Melech. A Panemius of Melech, he's Melech, finished, totally removed from anything of universe, everything. He's Melech, that's it. At the Panemius of Melech. The Chitzonius of Melech is already where where it falls into different categories, where we have to do declaring of saying he's Melech.
Okay, fine. That's when you get to Adon Olam Asher Malach, the level of Melucha that's in Adon Olam, which is something that we say every day of the year. Over here, he's talking about the level of Melucha that's only once a year, that's only on Rosh Hashanah. And that's an entirely different level of Melucha. Yeah. And it's when you get to this level of Melucha.
We'll probably go on the Panemius of Melech, not the Chitzonius.
I don't know if you could put it in those words, I don't know, but it's a different concept. It's definitely a different concept in Melucha. So he says like this, he's touching on your question a little bit. He's saying, there was already a Ratzon Melucha beforehand. And if the Ratzon Melucha exists already without the Yidden accomplishing it, then you can't say that the Yidden stand above it. So he says, no. This level, this Ratzon Melucha that the Eibishter has beforehand, that the Eibishter has from his own, is in the level of a Ratzon HaMuchlat Ba'atzmusay, which without learning the Mamor and Barichas, there's nothing to try and understand what does a Ratzon HaMuchlat Ba'atzmusay mean. But Benegelin and a Ratzon HaMuchlat Ba'atzmusay means that it is a Ratzon that is not expressed externally. It's not expressed outside of the Atzmus of the Eibishter. In other words, it has nothing to do with the worlds, not even with the highest worlds. because like, we're going to see a few levels in it. Because Sheni Begeder Gili Klal, it's not Bechlal in the Geder. It's not even in the category of things that can be revealed. Because if Ratzon HaMuchlat was already Begeder Gilui and is always expressed in the world, even in some form, so then what's special about the day of Rosh Hashanah? And from this, that we make a whole to do out of Rosh Hashanah, that drawing down and revealing this Ratzon to be king is a new thing. Why is it a new thing? Because the Ratzon HaMuchlat is not in the category of something that can be revealed and expressed outside of Atzmos and into the world. Okay? So we say that the Ratzon of the Eibishter, where we're holding in the Maimer right now, where does the Melucha of the Eibishter come from? The Melucha of the Eibishter comes from the Ratzon HaMuchlat that's in the Atzmos of the Eibishter. In every person, there are levels that are more external to him that he expresses on the outside, and there are levels that are more internal to him. And this is a mashal that we can understand also in Medrekas of Elikus, going all the way up to the highest levels. There are levels that are external to the Eibishter and levels that are internal and personal and are not outside. They are not expressed. So there is this Ratzon by the Eibishter to be king. However, what does that have to do with being king on the world? It's an internal thing by the Eibishter. It's for himself. He has a Ratzon to be king. The Yidden are the ones who reveal it. So according to this, where are the Yidden rooted? They're rooted in Ratzon HaMuchlat. They're able to take the Ratzon HaMuchlat and draw it down into this world. Okay? Now Ratzon HaMuchlat is already Lifnei Havaya Lekechem. Ratzon HaMuchlat Batzmunsi Havaya is already Geluyim. Compared to Ratzon HaMuchlat Batzmunsi Havaya is already Geluyim. So we established what we mean when we say Lifnei Havaya Lekechem, that the Yidden stand higher and precede Havaya Lekechem, that they are in Ratzon HaMuchlat, and that's how they have the ability to crown the Eibishter, because they can draw down this level into the world, because they're rooted in the same level. This Ratzon HaMuchlat, again, without learning the Ma'amarim, there's nothing to talk about. But this Ratzon HaMuchlat is not even revealed to the Eibishter, to the level where it exists. To understand, when we say
it's not Gilu, there's no Gilu.
What do you mean when you say Gilu? Yeah, when we talk in English, Gilu, you mean to say it's revealed. So what do you mean? So, what does a Gilu mean? A Gilu means when something stands outside of its source. Okay? In the Lashon Chassidus, when something comes outside of its source, now it's Begilu. When it's internal, it's Behelim. Now, when you say that it's not even Begilui Ba'atzma, you mean to say that it's not even the type of thing that can come Lidei Gilui. It's not in the category of Gilui, not even Ba'atzma. We'll leave it at that. It would be interesting to learn the Mamarim. He's Mitzayin, the people who prepared, it's a Bilti Mugamamer, but they were Mitzayin to some Mamarim that discussed these ideas. It's a Madrega that is not only, we'll start from the end. Not only lo yisyada, that it's not known to others, but the lo yada, it's not even known to itself. Even within itself, it's not in the category of something that's a gilu. It's much deeper than a revelation, even within itself. This idea that he doesn't even know himself what he has what his capabilities are within him. Like you have a person who has capabilities, and until he's challenged with a certain thing, he never even knew he had it in him. Right? You have this expression, I never knew I had it in me. Sometimes you say it and get to pay, and sometimes you say it and get lamutav. But it's something that the person doesn't even know that he had within himself. And we move on. So from this, we understand the kibbutz. So since the Yidden are able to create a revelation of this level, they must be rooted in this madrega. Okay? So on Rosh Hashanah, the Yidden go up beyond Havaya Lekechem to the madrega of Ratzon HaMuchlat. And from there, that's where the Ratzon of Melucha exists, and they reveal the Ratzon of Melucha from there into this world. I make the Eibishter king in this world. The Eidish Leima, now that takes it to a higher level. That the Yidden must be even higher than this madrega of Ratzon HaMuchlat. What does it mean? What does it mean that the Yidden are higher than the madrega of Ratzon HaMuchlat? That the Yidden come from a more pneumistic place within the Eibishter. Yeah, The Yidden come from a more pneumistic place within the Eibishter. Without this mashal being having to do specifically to the contours of this mimer and to the particular inyanim in this mimer, but it might help to try and envision a father who's marrying off a child. Yeah, I think everybody around the table, besides for me, has had that experience, Baruch Hashem. So what does it mean? What happens when a father marries off his child? A lot of things happen. Yeah, he decides he wants to marry his child. So for that, he has to have a chasana. To have the chasana, you have to have friends. When you invite friends, you have and family to make it a joyous occasion. To do that, you have to have a meal. And if you have a meal, you also have to have janitors afterwards to clean up the meal, to clean up the mess from the meal. Yeah? Now, if we're going to go and look at all of these details of the chasna, we'll see that each one is a lower level and more external to the person's ratzon. This thing that I'm making a chasna, so I have to have janitors. Does it even exist when the father says, I want to make chasna? Where is the first time that the idea of a janitor exists? It's only after the meal is over, or at least the planning for the meal, and now there's a mess. This is the first time that a janitor exists. Before that, a janitor doesn't exist. Same thing with the waiters. Where's the first time the waiters exist? The first time that there's a meal, so now we need somebody to serve the food, so there's waiters. So what's the shayrish? Where's the first place that the janitor exists? Very, very far down the line. It's not pnimius to the father, it's in chitzeniistic levels to the father. Same thing with all the other details of the wedding, the photographer, etc. So what touches the father on the deepest level is the child. He wants to marry his child off. That's the deepest thing over here. And that's the thing that goes all the way until the father. Nothing else goes all the way until the father. Not even the friends, not even the simcha. Everything is levels that since the child is negate to the father, so from that come later lower levels of things that the father wants, but they don't go that deep into the father. And even this will that the father has, this desire that the father has to marry off his child, exists on many levels within the father himself. In other words, there's many levels and dimensions to the connection of a father to his child, until you could say there's a ratzin hamuchlet by the father. There's something that touches him in the deepest way that he wants to marry off his child. Then there's a ratzin hagoli that he wants to marry off his child. But there's a much deeper place within him that touches him that says, I want my child to be married and to have a life. It's negea to him until the etzem of his soul. So what the Rebbe is describing over here is how the Yidden are not only they're not on the level of the janitor, not only they're not on the level of the waiter, or of the meal, or of the friends, or of the simcha, or of the chasana, or of the child's getting married, they're deeper and deeper and deeper, more meaningful and more, they touch the Eibishter, so to speak, because the Eibishter brought them out from the deepest place within him. That's what the Rebbe is pointing out. So you have Havaya Lekechem. Havaya Lekechem is usually the highest levels, but over here he says that's Giluyim. You have a place that's deeper within the Eibishter, and that's Ratzin HaMuchlet. But I was going to say, Yidden start before that. They're not something that came afterwards. They're Adraba, they're the ones that came before anything else, and therefore they're higher than anything else. So it says like this, the Yidden are even higher than the Ratzin HaMuchlet itself. We already explained before that Ratzin HaMuchlet is not a place in a person or a place in Atzmus that can even come, or that is even in the category of revelation. And suddenly the Yidden bring it to revelation. They have the ability to change the Ratzin HaMuchlet, that it should now have in it the category, the idea, the concept, and the poil mamish of a Gilui. So from this we have to say that they're even higher than the Ratzin HaMuchlet. And again, this is a simple logical thing without the deep Havana and all of these Madegas. It's a simple logical proof that the Rebbe brings us that we have to agree with. If we only think about it for a minute, we see we have to agree with it. If we are able to bring about a fundamental change in Ratzin HaMuchlet, then now it's Begili, it's revealed, then obviously we are higher than the Ratzin HaMuchlet. And in Asius, what are we saying? The Haratzin and Etzem. Because the Ratzin is still not the Etzem of the Eibishter, the Etzem of the thing.
Even Ratzin HaMuchlet.
Even the Ratzin HaMuchlet. And so therefore we must say, Visharsam, the Sherish of the Yidden, who are higher than the Ratzin HaMuchlet, who Batzmusay Muhusay. They are in Atzmusay Muhusay, Shaboy Muchlet Ratzin, within whom the Ratzin is Muchlet, is locked in. And since they're from the Etzem, which is higher than the Ratzin, they can change the Ratzin from above, tell it to change, and now come Lidei Gili. Okay, so now the Yidden Lifnei Avalekechem doesn't mean that they're at the level of Ratzon HaMuchlat. Lifnei Avalekechem means that we're Mushish Natzmusay Muhusay. And now the Rebbe takes it even beyond that. And this is the word that the Rebbe says in this case, I haven't seen somewhere else. It's the meaning and understanding of it, you would have to rely on other places where the Rebbe surely mentions this issue. But to me, it's a new issue just from here, and we'll go with what we have. The sheiros of the Yidden is even higher than Atzmos Umuhus. Ever heard that? You ever? The sheiros of the Yidden is even higher than Atzmos Umuhus. Dihine haloshen Atzmos Umuhus gam hu tayar. Atzmos Umuhus is also we're describing something. What's the tayar? The technical tayar is that who shlilas kol ha'inyanim ha'giluim. The meaning of Atzmos Umuhus is that it's not giluim shalamata mimenu. It's not giluim which are lower than it. And from this that we have to give the Eibishter some description, saying you are not giluyim. So we obviously at this level that I could have thought it's possible that he would have a connection to them, and therefore I have to say that you don't. So this is obviously a level that even though it's not itself giluyim, but it's shaykh to giluyim. The Alter begins in Tanya that if somebody would say this chachma, this is so deep that you can't touch it with your hands, it's a laughable thing because there's no connection. It's not something that you have to negate and say, some chachmas you can touch with the hand. This one is so deep, it's too deep to touch. The chachma is not negate all of these things. So if so, we say that Atzmos Umuhus is higher than Giluyim. That's what the meaning of Atzmos Umuhus means. So obviously it has a connection to Giluyim. And if it has, when we're saying it has a connection, you have to understand it's on the most subtle way. In most other Mammon, just say Atzmos is beyond Giluyim entirely. You have to go down many levels until you could even discuss the idea of Giluyim. But the Rebbe says, however, in a very subtle way, Atzmos also has some sort of a connection to Giluyim. However, the Yidden, their source is before Havaya Lekechem. The Pirush Lifnei Kan, Haina L'mayla, we call it darkest Havaya, even higher than all of the levels of Havaya. Gam L'mayla Mehageder v'Hatayer, the darkest Umaylo Umato, Lifnei v'Achre. The Yidden are beyond this whole world where you can say that there are darkest, there's Mailamata, Lifnei and Achre, and then there's something that's beyond this, which is Atzmos Umuhus. The Yidden stand beyond that also. And notably, the Rebbe doesn't give it a name. Because if the Rebbe gave it a name and a description, then obviously you're defining it. And what the Rebbe is saying over here is that the sheiros of the Yidden is in this place that's impossible to define, and not because it defies definition, but because it's beyond the category. It's not bechlal begeder. You can't. There's no such thing as defining it. It has nothing to do with definition, and that's the sheiros and makir of the Yidden. And that's the place to which the Yidden go up on the day of Rosh Hashanah. So when it says in Atem Nitzovim, we're saying that on this day is revealed and is accentuated the level of that the Yidden stand at the deepest place within the Eibishter himself. From there, the Eibishter cares about the Yidden. From there, the Eibishter wants the Yidden. From there, the Eibishter Kivyachol envisioned the Yidden. From there, the Eibishter himself made this idea that's called a Yid. So the Yidden stand beyond the Malachim, beyond Giluyim, beyond being beyond Giluyim. The Yidden are connected to the Eibishter himself. That's where the Eibishter decided that he wants to have Yidden. And on the day of Rosh Hashanah, we stand at this level. And that's why we are all one. Because you can understand that in this level of Elikus, you can't even call it Elikus, but in this level of the Eibishter, there are no separate neshamas. Chas v'shalom to say on such a place in the Yidden that there's any idea of this halkos, of separation, of separateness. It's all one. It's one oneness. And therefore, we all stand together. And dafka, when we go up to this madrega, can we completely do the Aveda of Rosh Hashanah? What's the Aveda of Rosh Hashanah? In order to make the Eibishter king over the world, we have to go to this high level. Okay? And you might understand the moment to say that really Rosh Hashanah has in it something even beyond Tamlichuni Aleichem, which is the revelation of this idea that the Yidden are mushros in this level of the Eibishter that's beyond even Atzmos Umuhus. And that's another idea in Rosh Hashanah, because this idea, if you notice, the Rebbe doesn't connect it to Tamlichuni Aleichem. The second level, that we are higher than the Ratzon HaMuchlat, the Eibishter connects it to the Aved of Tamlichuni Aleichem. It says the only way to change Ratzon HaMuchlat to come Lidei Gilui is if you're higher than it. So it has to do with Aved of Tamlichuni Aleichem. This next level, then on Rosh Hashanah, you have this that the Yidden go up to their highest level, even beyond Atzmas and Mahus. He doesn't connect it with the Aved of Tamlichuni Aleichem, Uli Eshlemer, that it's not part of the Aved of Tamlichuni Aleichem, it's a higher union in Rosh Hashanah itself. That'll be a big chiddush, so we're going to leave it as a thought, as a mashmos of the mind. Now, how? Okay, it's Al Zeir Shein. It's Al Zeir Shein. Was meint es bepels? Kommt Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, it's kommt Rosh Hashanah. What am I supposed to do? With what am I going to live on Rosh Hashanah? So it says it's obvious. If this is the idea of Rosh Hashanah, that we go beyond all levels and we stand all together, then I know what I have to do here in this world as a human being on Rosh Hashanah. On the day of Rosh Hashanah, I have to be in complete unity with every single Yid and to the highest level. That's the Avodah of Rosh Hashanah. If you want to do Rosh Hashanah, see to it that you feel and you bring about within yourself a oneness with you and your fellow Yid that's beyond any separation whatsoever, beyond even the potential for separation, beyond even calling yourself two separate things. You're not two separate things. You and the other Yid is one thing, mamish. From all of this, we can understand also what the Aveda of the Yidden is on the day of Rosh Hashanah, that they stand before the Eibishter. Aveda, and Aveda means the Aveda of the Mamish as people in this world. That we all have to bring ourselves to this place where we're one with our fellow Yidden. Because through this Aveda, we're able to reach higher than any level at all completely. The there also has to be the achdus that we experience down here. Since the idea of Rosh Hashanah is that we have to reach this level of complete and oneness and the ultimate level of achdus by the Eibishter on the day of Rosh Hashanah. So too, our achdus down here has to be beyond any separations and beyond any levels. Not saying I'm bigger, that guy is smaller. In some things he's bigger, but also I'm bigger in some. No such nonsense. From standing in a place of Rashechem Shivtechem and Chet V'Tzach Shev Mimecha, Nasis Nekuda Achas becomes one simple Nekuda that there's no separation within it. Shalamayla Mikol Geder His Chalkus. Why is it Rashechem Shivtechem Chet V'Tzach Shev Mimecha? Zebed says, wait a second, don't become spiritual over here. You have to take this high level. Once you bring yourself to this understanding, to this realization and acknowledgement that me and the other Yid is not two separate things. We are all one. Then what do you have to do? You have to see to it to bring down this attitude and this Avas Yisrael into all the levels, the way they stand down here in this world as separate people. Draw down this achdus within every single Yid, to the way they stand. As this Yid, until the other Yid, who's the Chet V'Tzecha and Shev Mimecha, and the way we are here as people experiencing life, as separate things, bring the achdus into there also, which Bepashtus means treat your fellow Jew with love, not only as a neshama, not only because in Moshe Rishon we're one, but do you know what I think about you? Not like that. Think about him with love and with closeness, and look out only for the good of one another. That's the Avodah of Rosh Hashanah. That's how we achieve Tamlichuni Aleichem, and that's also how we connect in a very real way to this idea that all of the Yidden are mushish in the highest place in the Eibishter. If a person is going to separate himself from another Yid, he can't say, "Oh, I'm one with the Eibishter." No, if you're one with the Eibishter, then you wouldn't see yourself separate from another Yid. Because when you're one with the Eibishter, you're one with every single Yid throughout the entire universe and throughout all history also. Maybe we be successful in this Aveda.
Now we can understand, at least I can understand better, based on this Maimah, we can see why Moshe Rabbeinu, even though it was one day before he passed away, he wanted to reenact this whole idea of unity. Bring him in here. Because Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't tell Hashem, listen, let's wait for Rosh Hashanah, because Atem Nitzovim will make more sense. He said, no, when you gotta go, right?
And what's the most important thing for me right now to do?
Bring them all together, and make sure that they understand this concept. Koyal Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, very good. It's that connection.
That's it. But it took, the mind was short, sweet, and put it together.
Anyways, I'll just illustrate with a story of two Hasidim without getting into the detail at all, but there was a Chassid who came to the Rebbe Maharash, and and he told the Rebbe Maharash about a certain chassid in his town. He told him, Shmuel Blin, and I forgot the other person's name, and he told him that chassid lost all his money. Take, you can't ask questions on the Eibishter. Surely everything he does is just. But the Rachmanis on this chassid is very great. The Rebbe Maharash didn't answer him. Didn't like the way he spoke.
You didn't like it?
The Rebbe Maharash.
Or didn't like it?
You hear what the guy said?
Yeah.
He's being matzdik esadin. The suffering. A few months later, this chassid had a tragedy. Lost a lot of his money, not even all of it, but a lot of his money. And he came to the Rebbe Maharash, and he's crying and crying and crying. So the Rebbe Maharash says, aha, when it comes to the other, you've lost all of his money. You say, you're being matzdik esadin. You understand the Eibishter. You can understand. You said it for Rachmanis, but you can understand that whatever the Eibishter does is good. And of course, it's Rachmanis. When it comes to you, you didn't lose all of your money. You still have a lot of your assets. But you're crying without being matzdik esadin, no understanding. It's terrible. And then Rash finished telling him that the cause for this is as dir und der Zweite ist zwei besondere Sachen. What caused such a mindset that you and the other Yid are two separate things? So maybe his behavior ended up coming down into a rather, something that even we could sense is off. But the Rebbe Maharash analyzed it and said it came from a very subtle problem, which unfortunately we all have to work on. That me and another person is two separate things.
Because on yourself, you're not matzah.
I've never.
So if the other person is like
you wouldn't be matzah. So obviously on your other person. So what they're saying is they can't be even on the most subtle level. Because if there is going to be on the most subtle level, could come out what happened with this chassid that he went to Rebbe Maharash and another Yid is suffering and he's busy justifying the Eibishter. So it's a very interesting story the way the Rebbe Maharash gives him a tikkun. A very long story. Okay, we should be have a Shana Tov Masukah and Mashiach now.